You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Spin me around, roll me up, fucking circle.
All right, we're here with a quick recap of last night's game against the Wizards, and also a pick for the day, an NBA betting pick for the day that you can use or not use. On they're going to call it a hard foul. Doing the solo, no mic today, so this will be quick, probably less than 10-minute show. Hey, last night this was just a mismatch of two teams, in two different points in their trajectory. The Celtics, obviously, a team trying to repeat odds-on favorite to be the NBA champions again, and the Wizards, who are trying to build a culture and trying to set something up for their future, starting two rookies, real raw players, and probably hoping to be at the front end of that lottery at the end of the season. It was still their opening night, and they came out with energy. And Jordan Poole certainly was ready to go. And the Celtics, I thought, were kind of slow walking this game to start, knowing what they could probably get whatever they want offensively, and really weren't dug into the attention on detail on defense. And you saw a couple balls go out of bounds off rebounds, or just didn't corral the ball, or, a little bit of sloppiness on the offensive end, and they weren't focused to start. And that bled over into the second quarter, where the Wizards had three straight plays accumulating with a Kyle Kuzma uncontested layup, where they were just able to get to the paint, or there goes my dog, or follow up with an offensive rebound. And I think at that point it was 47-46. And with about 6 minutes to go in the second quarter, and that Missoula calls a timeout. The Celtics then go on to go up by 10 at halftime, and then have a 15-point plus, lead in the third quarter that grew to an over 20-point lead, where they just, dialed in on defense, didn't let the Wizards kind of get any good looks at all, and you saw the frustration of a bad team where they're, that one play in particular, Kyle Kuzma, where he kind of dribbles the ball all over the place out of control, then throws off a heave when there's still 2 seconds on the shot clock. That ended up being an air ball. I think was the accumulation of their frustration of not being able to get anything going against the Celtics. And on the other end, it's, the Wizards came out with the philosophy where we're going to limit their threes and try to force them to beat us other ways, which means, we're not going to put two on the ball against Tatum. We're not going to put two on the ball against Brown. And so what do the Celtics do? Those two guys just kind of get to their spots whenever they want against sometimes good defense, sometimes lesser defense, finding matchups that they absolutely wanted. I mean, Tatum from within the three-point line in that first quarter was really, really good, both finishing and finding his shot. And Brown subsequently did that in the second and third quarter. And then before you know it, the Wizards are putting two on the ball because the game's getting out of reach, and those two guys have taken over. And as soon as they do that, they make the right reads, and you have plays like you have White wide open in the corner. It's really going to be interesting just going forward on what defenses try to do to slow down the Celtics, because there's very few guys in the league that you can get up in the grill of Brown and Tatum and force them off their spots. And then even if you do that, you need to have decent backline help. But they're so good that if you send the help, these two guys are finding the open man, and Celtics role players aren't your typical role players or championship role players. They some borderline all stars. You have guys like Holiday, who's considered a role player, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, that are just ready to catch and shoot or catch and drive and then find the next person in rotation. So it's one thing to say we're just going to take the three away from the Celtics. It's another thing to deal with the reality of what they can do when you do that, which is, two great players being able to get to wherever they want, find the matchups of whoever they want, and then either find the open man or get a shot by either overpowering you or just creating enough space for themselves. It's really a difficult situation, and I'm going to be interested to see, how teams like the Bucks with some size inside with Giannis and Lopez decide to attack the Celtics next week. What the Pacers decide to do with their scoring ability and how they're going to approach the defensively. Certainly, I thought last year in the playoffs they focused on taking away the three, and even then, when it mattered the most, the Celtics just got whatever shots they wanted and whatever matchups they wanted against those guys down the stretch and make it during their comeback. So it'll be interesting to see how those teams approach the Celtics next week, and if there will be a formula to slow these guys down, or is it a situation in the past where the Celtics are maybe more their worst enemy, and if they're going, there really isn't much you can do. So that's my recap. Kind of a sleepy game to start. Celtics woke up and, before you know it, it was a 25-point game. And here's a fun, interesting stat. The games have been so uncompetitive late to start the season through the Knicks and the Wizards game that JD Davidson has more fourth quarter minutes than Jason Tatum. Lastly, my pick for the day. Look, it is hard to pick games early in the NBA season because there are no trend lines. It's better to sit back and watch these things and see how the games play out, and then focus on what you want to do in a week to 2 weeks. But the fun thing to do is just to kind of say, all right, I think this is going to happen early on, and maybe not put any money on it, and then see how it plays out. I'm looking at this Pacers Knicks game. And the one thing I'm kind of looking for is how experts and maybe Vegas is overrating or overvaluing things. And I think right now, Vegas and experts are overrating and overvaluing the Knicks defense because of Tom Thibodeau and what they were able to do last year. I think they've gotten worse with what they've done at center with Karl Anthony Towns. And I think they now have two players you can attack, and Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns and pick and rolls. I think that some teams are going to have more success versus that than others. And I think the Pacers are one of those teams that can have success. So I'm looking at three numbers in this game. I think this game's number one. I think it's going to go over. I just don't. I think the total of 227 is too low. I think both these teams are going to score points, and I'm not quite sure who's going to win this game. The Knicks have the revenge factor. They're coming off an embarrassment and opening night. They're going to be ready to go. But I still think the Pacers are going to get a lot of good looks, and as long as they don't miss, they're going to put up big numbers on the offensive end. And I think the Knicks will too. I like that, and I also like the team total over for the Pacers at 111.5. And I like the first half over for the Pacers, which is only at 54.5, and that's at almost straight money. So that's the bet I really like the most. I'm not putting money on this. But if I was going to tell you to do anything tonight, those are the three I like. And if there's one, it's the 54.5 first half over for the Pacers. I think, especially in the second quarter, the Pacers are going to find their rhythm, and they're going to start getting looks, and they're going to start getting good looks, especially from three. And with the pace they play at, I think the Knicks could struggle with it a little bit, as we saw last year. All right, that's it for me.